All right, welcome back to another episode of Power Players Podcast. In this episode, I'm so thrilled to have this guest, man. Um, this is the first ball boy I'm having on my show, and what a way to kick it off! Without this man in Utah, I personally believe any ball boy doing their job, the game's not going to happen. I mean, this guy right here is well known in Utah, well known around the NBA. Um, he's got a
Yeah.
very interesting story that we're gonna get into. But like I said, without the ball boys, the games wouldn't go on. There'd
Too
be
kind, Junior. You're too kind, Junior. I like it. I'll take it. But yeah,
I
there's
got
only
my
a
man
small group
Alex,
of us.
A-Rod, what is it, Cheech Rodriguez?
Cheech Rodriguez during the glory days of the Utah Jazz here in White World. Yeah, let me tell you, that was crazy times. I mean,
Man, listen.
that was the best they're ever going to get. I still don't think, even with Donovan Mitchell and all the new getting the French Wall, whatever they call them, the Eiffel Tower, they ain't going to get near as far. They're not as good. They're not as good as back in the days when the mailman went
No,
Stockton
man.
to Malone.
You guys had one of the best 1-2 duos in the 90s with Stockton and Malone.
As Jim Rome called him, the pasty gangster was
Yes.
John Stockton. He wouldn't, he played by the book, and other players didn't like it because when he set a pick, Tim Hardaway didn't realize how hard of a pick it was going to come. Like those big center guys and the forwards didn't realize how hard of a pick John Stockton would set. And so he put all his weight into the pick, and he knocked those big guys back to where they get in fights. They didn't like guards setting picks on them. Patrick Ewing, your New York Knicks, and those guys.
Yeah.
Mason.
Let me tell you, man, he was the shortest guy on the court, but was one of the dirtiest players quietly that nobody knew about.
Yeah, man, it was solid. But the guy was a family man. He was so hardcore family guy. Like you wouldn't even know. He got on the court and the switch came on. It was like time to dish out some punishment.
Yeah,
and he turned into a different guy.
Total opposite.
Total, like you wouldn't even know him walking next to him in the streets. No one recognized him. Nobody even knew who he was.
But one of the nicest down to earth guys off the court, like away from the game.
Hardcore family guy. Oh yeah, hardcore family dude.
Amazing
nicest guy ever.
And that's what you always got with the players. Like on the court, they were a totally different person. Like they were an animal. You didn't want to deal with them. But off the court, it's a different personality.
Well, we got to see the real human side of them because, fans would be like, oh, John Stockton, he was a dick. I tried to ask him for an autograph, and that motherfucker told me no. Like, and I was like, oh, he was in a hurry, man. You know how many autographs he gets asked for everywhere he goes? Like, it gets annoying. Like, sometimes he'd have me sign autographs. I feel bad for those people in the locker room. Like, whoever got those autographs better go get them checked. But Stockton would be like, hey, Rod, here, I'm in a fucking hurry. I got an interview. Here, sign these for me. I'm like, sign them? He's like, just make it look as good as you can. I was like, shit, all right. And then here I am signing autographs. I was like, who they go? I don't know who they're going to. I'm going to get in trouble for this. I don't know.
Dude, I used to do that with Derek Coleman and Kenny Anderson.
Yeah.
I would write Michael Coleman or Michael Anderson. I'd be like their little brother. And whoever the balls are going to, there would be a new guy on the basketball.
Yeah. He's like, look, I just go like this and show me. And I'm like, oh, God, what am I doing right here? Am I signing this? Yeah, that was great times, man. I remember Sam Bowie, the Nets.
Oh, man.
Were you with the Nets, Sam? I remember the Sam Bowie days.
Yeah, man. I was there. 1990. I was there.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy at the time. I started in 89 in the Salt Palace.
Ooh.
And then it was the last year of the Salt Palace, and they were moving to the Delta Center back at the time. It's like, I think it was Mark Eaton's second to last year, and then Thurl Bailey's last year was the first year in the Delta Center, I think. And then
you just brought back two names, Mark Eaton and Thurl Bailey. Whoa.
Yeah. The big white wall.
Oh,
the giant white wall. He couldn't shoot worth shit.
No, he couldn't.
He could get you 2 points maybe per game. But on defense, that dude was a giant white wall. All he had to do was stand there and take up space.
He was a monster. He was a monster.
That's how he got away with it. Yeah.
You know what's crazy? I still have Karl Malone and John Stockton's. I have Karl Malone's wristband, the mailman.
Oh, nice.
and then I got John Stockton to sign these 2 books. But Carl was like, he was weird. Like sometimes he was a nice guy, and then other times he'd be like a straight jerk.
Yeah.
Like
he was like trying to be all business, probably on visiting teams, and he was sometimes, he had family problems, so sometimes he'd show up at the Delta Center. He was in a bad mood, and you knew when to approach him and when not to approach him. But I could always give him shit. I was the only ball boy who wasn't afraid of these players. So my first time ever, my buddy was a ball boy. He's like, "Hey, do you want to come to this?" It was the practice or the preseason pickup game. The games they do. Early season. It was here in Utah. They host that, and it was hosted here. So we were the ball boys for that whole tournament. And my first time was meeting him at Westminster at practice. And he's like, "Ball man, he's give me a Gatorade, give me a green Gatorade." I'm like, "What?" And so I run out and I go get him, and then I give it to him. And they're stretching. They're in the middle of the court stretching while they're right before practice. So I give him the Gatorade, and he like chucks it back to me. And I have to catch it, and I'm like standing there, and at that point I realized, like, waiting for him he's going to say thank you. He has to say thank you. Standing there, I'm still standing on the court. Everyone's like, "What are you doing?" Like, everyone's looking at me like, "Get off." I'm like standing. He's like, "You need something?" And I was like, "Yeah, maybe a thank you." And David Benoit was stretching next to him. And David Benoit rolls over and started laughing. He's like, "Oh no, the ball man just told you where to go." And Carl looks up at me. I'm like, just a regular thank you would be great. Wow. And Stockton started laughing, and and that's where he's like, "You go sit down. I'm gonna talk to you later." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go." And that's when it started, because all the ball boys were afraid to talk to the players. Stockton would ask them for a towel, and they'd give him the towel and run back like they were the tennis return guys at Wimbledon. They were afraid. They wouldn't say a word. I'm like, this is a once in a lifetime job. Yeah. How can we not say something to them? How can you not say something to them and talk to them? Like, so we got to know them like on that level that most people don't get to know. Only their family members get to know them on that kind of level.
So your first impression was to Karl Malone for him waiting to say thank you. You were waiting for him to say thank you.
He was rude. First impression already, he didn't even say thank you.
That's
the same thing with Charles Barkley in the locker room, and Kevin Johnson fell off the bench and was like, "Oh my God, it's the best thing I've ever heard." Like,
yeah, dude, you gotta tell the story. I heard this story.
It's the best thing I ever heard. He's like, "That was the funniest thing I've heard all year." And
so tell about the Charles Barkley story, man.
So he's playing with the Phoenix Suns. I get to meet him. I finally get to do the visiting locker room because back then it was by seniority, right? So the top ball boys, they got to do the visiting locker room because that's where you made the most money. You're getting like $200 a night in cash. Yep. Plus you're getting your hourly. We got 2 tickets to the game. So and then you get to meet the players, and there's only 2 ball boys in the entire locker room. So that was where you wanted to go. So I was, waiting for my turn to work visitors, and I got the Phoenix Suns with Barkley and KJ, and we were going to the finals, I think. And it was hilarious because I'm sitting in the middle of the room just running errands. Dan Marley, over there getting like towels and just standing in the middle of the locker room before the game. They're getting taped in the back, getting taped up in the right behind me. And all of a sudden I hear this ball man, he's like, "Man, get me a towel, man, and get me an orange Gatorade again." And I'm like standing there, but he yelled it like, "Ball man!" Like, I didn't like the way he yelled it, and so I'm standing there, and Kevin Johnson's getting his shoes, he's tying his shoes on right next to me, and he's like just tying, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Ball man, are you deaf?" And KJ looks up, he's like, "Hey man, Charles is talking to you," and I'm like, "I know. Did you hear the way he's talking to me? Do you like the way he's talking to me?" And he rolls he rolls to the side and starts laughing. He's like, "That's the funniest shit I've heard all." And all of a sudden I feel this presence. I still haven't turned around. And you could feel like when there's a presence near you without even looking. I could feel there's this giant body behind me, and it's right in my ear. He's like, "Ball man, did you not get me my Gatorade yet?" And I turn around, I'm like, "I did, Charles." And I go, "You know what? I make $4.50 an hour plus tips. How much do you make?" The least you can do is say thank you and please, ball man, go get me a Gatorade. I make $4.50 an hour. In the middle of the locker room, they all started laughing. They're like, "Oh shit!" He grabs me by the shoulder. He's like, "Come here, young one. Come over here. Sit down next to me." He's like, where are you from? And like talk to me. And that's how I got to know them all. Michael Jordan, same thing. I'm sitting in the locker room. I wasn't even supposed to be in that locker room. And they were sold out, no tickets left. And he needed 2 more tickets. And I wasn't using my ballboy seats yet. My dad and brother weren't going. So I was like, you can have mine. He's like, what?
Crazy.
He's like, yeah, I was standing in the right place at the right time. He's like, what? He's like, you have 2 tickets? And I was like, I got my 2 ballboys. They're shitty. They're upper bowl, nosebleed, but you can have them. And he's like, I'll buy them from you. And I was like, I'm going to buy beer. I was in college. I was like, I'm going to buy beer with it. Like, all right, what are you going to give me for it? He's like, you know what? You can have my shoes after the game. And then I said, hell yes. That's when I was like, deal. I didn't even think of that. Like, why did I think of that? But I was like, I was so nervous in like talking to him.
Hold up, dude. The trade here. Yeah. Tickets up in the nosebleeds for he traded you his game sneakers.
Yeah.
That's an insane trade. Yeah. Do you know like how long it took me just to like talk to Mike?
Oh, I was scared shitless. I was so nervous. I was so nervous talking to him.
That was your first time talking to him?
That was my first time talking to him because it's the first time I got to even go close to the locker room. Because I was still not a senior. I still wasn't even supposed to be in the visiting locker room.
Yeah,
and I was just down because no one was going to stop me. I couldn't wait to see Michael Jordan, so I had to be in the locker room when they got there and like just stand there and watch. So I made it in there, but he needed tickets and I had to.
Holy cow, dude.
Yeah.
That is insane. Your first meeting with MJ and you're offering him your tickets and he's offering you to trade his sneakers.
And this is the game where everyone booed him. So because they just announced that Utah was going to get the All-Star game and it was in February and Michael Jordan came out saying like, yeah, I mean, it's great they're getting it, but it's going to be really boring. We're going to be snowed in. There's nowhere to go. Like what are we going to do? Go skiing? Are we going to go snowboarding? Like during the break, like we're going to be stuck in our hotel rooms. There's no clubs, there's nothing to do here. So he got in trouble for that comment. So that's when he was coming into town. And every time he touched the ball, the fans booed him as loud. Even as soon as he caught the ball, he was getting booed. And there's clips of it. If you Google it, I think there's clips of it. It's a 1992 regular season Jazz game. But what happens is they boo him because of what he said. And the Bulls are getting pummeled. The Jazz are playing on fire. They're up by like 19, 20 points going into halftime. And right at halftime with 1 second left, he pulls up a jumper from middle court, right on the logo, right on the Jazz logo in the middle of the court, a jumper, not a heave-ho. It wasn't a run and throw the ball. It was a pull-up jumper from half court and nothing but net to end the half. And he stood there in the middle of the court before he left, clapping as the fans were like booing him. And that fired him up. He went in the locker room. In that game, the Jazz were up by like 11 points in the fourth quarter with only like 7 minutes to go. And Michael Jordan didn't pass the ball the rest of the game and beat the Jazz by like 6 points. And they were up by the Jazz were up by 11. I was like, I kept hitting my ball boy buddy. We were underneath the standard. And I was like, are you watching this? Like, nobody could stop the guy. He would go down, shoot, 3-pointer, done. Come down, drive in the paint, dunk. I'm like, no one could stop this guy. Like, for the last 7 minutes, no one could stop him. And he beat the Jazz by himself in 92. That was a 92 regular season game, man. It was ridiculous.
And the crowd gave him motivation.
Oh, they fired him up by booing him every time. And that was the wrong thing to do to that guy. You did not want to boo him.
Let me tell you.
No.
And so after the game, and then he gave you his sneakers.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like?
Oh, the reporters are rallying around his locker. They're waiting to ask him questions. He's like, yo, man, get out of the way. He's like, Alex. Also, I'm standing in the back. And he's like, Alex, let the man through. He's got his shoes and he signs them and he's like holding them up. And all of a sudden it parted like the Red Sea. It was like the Red Sea parting. And I went in there and he's like, hey, thanks, man. He's like, these are yours. And I took him and I remember just grabbing him and wrapping him in a towel, one of the locker room towels. And I booked it to my locker. And I just stuffed him in my locker and locked him in there until after we got to leave. But yeah, I know you. 3 ball boys knew I got him. Yeah, eventually they all found out I got him. But that night there was only 3 ball boys that saw me get them, and so I'd already locked them up by the time. Nobody even knew. The trainer didn't even know I got him.
I was gonna say
nobody's gonna take him from me.
I was gonna say, like, did anybody get pissed that you took?
Oh
him?
Yeah. The two ball boys that were in that locker room that were the veteran ball boys that were working, they were pissed that I was in there because I wasn't supposed to be in there, but they got pissed. But like, hey man, this is a once in a lifetime job. You're not gonna stop me from taking chances on a once in a lifetime job. So
yeah, I know those feelings, man, because it took me what 5-6 years to work in the visiting team locker room for the Nets, and when I did work in the locker room, that's when I got a chance to really get close to the players and talk to them. Right. And then there was one time where I asked Mike, because I used to go in there, to see Scottie Pippen and see a couple of other players, but I was mainly cool with Pippen. So I would always lace up his sneakers before the game. He, he'd give me a tip. I'd be like, yo, it's cool, man, because you always take care of me.
Right. Are you with the Nets or the Knicks at this
point? Both.
So you did both games? Oh, because did they both play in the same arena?
Well, no, I was with the New Jersey Nets from 1990 to 98. And then the lockout happened in 98, and I wasn't working, but I kept in contact with a couple of Knicks players. Yeah. So I asked him, I was like, hey, man, I would love to work for the Knicks. I'm not with the Nets no more. He was like, yo, we got you, man. So really? it was Chris Childs and Larry Johnson that got me the job with the Knicks. And I was with the Knicks from 2000 to 2003. But the best years were in the 90s. And I had asked Mike right after I laced up Pippen's sneakers. I was like, Mike, can I lace your sneakers? So as soon as I bent down to touch the sneakers, he was like, you touch my sneakers and I'll shoot your fingers off.
Yeah.
So I was like, come on, Mike, stop playing around. So he's like, nah, go ahead, boy. But I understood him. Like, Mike's got to trust you before he lets you, like,
big time.
Close to
or
him.
You do him a favor, or if you can get in and do him a favor real quick, then he'll trust you.
Yeah, like run these tickets up at the last minute, or go, who's that chick over there? Oh no, you can't talk to her. Yeah. That's one of the players' wife. Oh, okay, I'm not gonna talk to her.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, he came in 2 months later for the All-Star game, so I was waiting. They're like, what locker room do you want to work, the East or the West? I was like, East. I'm waiting. I mean, I was there waiting. I had the locker room ready. They were first time coming in. I'm ready, waiting. He was like the third player into the locker room, and I went down straight next to him. He's like, what's up, man? I'm like, hey, what's up? I got some favors this weekend. He's like, oh, God, man. He's like, seriously? He's like, we haven't started yet. I just got here. And I'm like, no, they're good favors. I don't want an autograph. He's like, what? You don't want my autograph? I'm like, I don't want an autograph. I need you to visit, like, my brother wants to meet him. And my brother was born without any hands, the wrist. He was like 11 years older than me.
Wow.
So he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, so my brother just wants to meet you. So, if we can meet you sometime. He's like, well, only time would be like at the hotel up my room. I'm like, whatever works. Like, and he's like, okay, come, bring him to my room. And I was like, well, you got to remember, I mean, he doesn't have any hands. So when he shakes your hand, just don't be shocked. Because people will get shocked when my brother would put his hand out, there wasn't anything there. They're like, so he's like, man, don't you know how I'm going to act around a handicapped person? I was like, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I don't even know why I was saying that, but I'll see you later. But it was hilarious. So I tell my brother, and he's excited. He can't believe it's happening because he grew up with Dr. J. His idol was Dr. J. And Dr. J comes into the story. This plays into the same following night. But we get to the hotel, and there's so many people just outside waiting for autographs and trying to get pictures of them as they're all staying at the Little America. And we get up there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here to see Michael Jordan. The security laughs at me. They're like, yeah, right, kid. Everyone here is here to see Michael Jordan. And I'm like, no, I really am. Like, yeah. So they wouldn't let us in. And so I had to call the hotel and talk to the manager and tell him, look, I'm being serious. I'm outside. I'm here to see Michael. You can call his room. So like, all right, hold on a minute. And they called his room, and he said, yeah, let him up. So then they come running out. And finally, they let us through, and we get up to this room, and he opens the door. And he's just in his shorts, just chilling in a T-shirt and shorts. And he opens the door, and my brother who walks in, and they hit it off and talking all night about him. And we're sitting in his room just chilling, watching ESPN, talking about sports. And he's asking my brother questions the whole night.
That's insane, man. You and your brother actually sitting there with Michael Jordan, just having a conversation.
Well, yep, crap, shitting his pants, man. I mean, it was hilarious.
I know you probably couldn't sleep that night.
Yeah. So he was excited, and then the next day was the All-Star party before the game on Sunday, and the celebrities show up, And I was getting into the party with Cedric Sabalas. Remember Cedric Sabalas, the blind dunk champion, So I was great friends with Cedric after that incident with Charles Barkley. I made fun, and like I was his go-to guy every time the Phoenix Suns came in. I was Cedric's guy. Like he was tipping me $100 a game just to go get him alcohol. They were going home. They needed a bottle of some, vodka or something for the plane ride. So he would send me to the liquor store to go get all this stuff. And I was getting the All-Star party, and we get into the All-Star party with my brother again. And there's the first table. There's like this one table. Yeah, they're all set. And you go in this giant room, and there's tables set for food and entertainment. And we sit down. He's like, just sit down here. He's like, I got to go say hi to a bunch of people. I'm like, yeah, me and my brother just sit down at the table inside the party. And next thing you know, George Gervin, because I was great friends with the Spurs, and he was assistant coach. Iceman George Gervin comes up and puts his hand on my shoulder. We're sitting at the table. He's like, young man, what's up? And I'm like, George. I called him George because I wasn't old enough to know he was the Iceman. And my brother's like, oh, my God, it's the Iceman. And I was like, the Iceman. And he was like, oh, this your brother? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, he's 11 years older than me. So he grew up with Dr. J and the Iceman and those guys. And I was like, the Iceman. He's like, my finger roll. And he like does the finger roll. And my brother's like, yeah, he's the Iceman. He had the best finger roll in the NBA.
Wait, he says that to you? He goes, the finger roll.
Yeah, the finger roll. And son, and he sits down next to me and we're talking again. He's like, how'd you get into this party, right? And I'm like, dude said. And so he's sitting there, and all of a sudden, hand comes from behind him and grabs him in the shoulders like, Iceman, right? And he looks at it's Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson's saying hi to him. And he's like, yeah, man, sit down at this table. Talk to me for a minute. Don't go anywhere. So Magic Johnson sits down next to him right at the table. And me and my brother are just like sitting there having drinks going, that's Magic and Iceman just sitting next to me. He's like, yeah, that's the Iceman. And all of a sudden, Michael Jordan comes around the corner and he grabs Magic and he says something stupid in his ear. And he sits down, he looks at me, he's like, what are you doing here? I was with you guys last night, man. Can you stop following me? And I was like, it's not my fault. We got in with Sed. I'm like, it wasn't my bad. We're not here to see you anyways. And he laughed because I never wanted anything from him. I never wanted one. I only had 4 autographs. I still have 1 left, and the game worn shoes. And then the other ones got sold. And then there was a poster I sold. So I only have 2 autographs of him left I was there for 8 years, and I only have 4 autographs, Michael Jordan.
Only.
Yeah.
I was there. I mean, that's more than enough, man. I mean,
man.
Listen, first,
it is.
Hold on.
I had ballboys that were like trying to get like one every time he came. Like they were getting like 10 things signed every time he came.
Well, that was always the thing when MJ came. There was at least like 10 to 20 things that
he had to sign.
Yeah, he had to sign it. He couldn't stand it, but he would do it though. He would do it sometimes. Yeah. But so wait, because I only have 2 things signed by Michael Jordan. There are two Sports Illustrated magazine he signed for me, and that took me, it took me quite some time for him to be cool, to sign it.
Right.
How much did you get for your items, if I'm allowed to ask?
Oh yeah. So the shoes were finally sold for like $43,000. I probably could have waited. There was that crypto. But you know what? I can buy them back someday because I took the money and I invested in crypto.
Oh,
and
nice.
I doubled my income. I doubled the amount. So
nice.
I used the money to buy a house and invest the rest of it into crypto, and I did that. And now they sold for $43,000, and then I had a poster that sold for $4,000. And the autographed, the other autographed picture I had, I gave to a friend as a gift.
But you held on to the sneakers for like 20 years though, right?
Yeah. I held on to them for a long time.
Nice.
So just last 3 years ago.
2017?
Yeah, 2017 they auctioned off.
Nice, man.
My buddy, that other ball boy, got lucky and got the flu shoes, and he's the one that sold his for $100,000.
Oh yeah.
So the flu shoes, I don't know, they were worth more because they were the flu shoes in the finals, I guess. Because he was in the final.
You Utah Jazz ball boys took this good stuff.
Oh man, he got lucky with those ones.
After Jordan came there and iced y'all he
Yeah.
gave y'all the good stuff. That's
I
why
guess
he did
in
it.
a way. There was certain
Wow.
ball boys, like I said, once they saw me, I was a patriarch. So once I saw me interacting with the players, the other ball boys got a little more confidence and started talking to the players. Because, I mean, I was hamming it up. I was literally sitting next to players in the visitor room, and I knew as soon as they would tip me for my college, like I would tell them, I was like, they're like, Tim Hardaway came in, and he was like, yo man, what's up? I'm like, hey, how you doing, Tim? And he was playing the Game Boy at the time. He had the Game Boy, and he thought he was the shit at Tetris. And Game Boy Tetris just came out, and I was like, nobody could beat me in Tetris. So I was sitting there, and I'd be like, man, I don't know, I'm struggling. He's like, what's up, man? What's going on? You okay? And I'm like, yeah, no, it's schoolwork. Like I'm trying to work. I got 2 jobs to pay for college, and I got to work 2 jobs, so I never get to hang out with my friends. He's like, no, man. He's like, well, it's like, yeah, books are like $300. And he's like, I got you after the game. I got you. And like, he gave me $300 to help pay for my books. So at that point, I was like, oh shit, I could use this on every player. Wait a minute, I could talk to all the players. Next thing you know, by my last year, I was leaving the locker room with probably like $500 to $1,000 a night. Like,
yeah, I believe
cash,
you, dude.
like in cash.
All right, so wait,
felt like a stripper.
Yeah, you're selling your services.
I made as much as a stripper, and I didn't have to get naked. Yeah.
All you had to do is just sit there and talk to him.
Just talk to him and sit there and make him feel sorry for you a little bit. Sorry about the Hardaway. Hey, he loves me. In fact, I bet he still remembers me because I took his Game Boy from him. We bet on who would get the highest score, and Chris Mullen went running out on the court to show him my score, and it was like double as his. And he's like, you just lost your Game Boy. And I was like, yes. And he left Salt Lake City without his Game Boy. He had to